Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to Enigmatica 2 Expert. Now, this has been running for, let's see, what time is it? It's been running for about 20 hours, I'd say, about 20 hours. Now, granted, it did shut down during the night, not long after I went to bed, and so it was actually down for probably about 6 hours, maybe 7 hours, something like that, that it was down, because we don't have the fuel rods automated. But we currently have 11,708 millibuckets of UU matter. It's actually about to finish its second cycle. So you can see these fuel rods have 1,400 durability left at the moment. So these will be shutting off before too long. But so far, everything's been running great. I did go ahead, of course, I made a second batch of fuel rods, so we actually have 14 depleted uranium fuel rods here. We'll get into this in just a second. I have a bunch more prep done. Now, down here, I have been doing a bit of building. I mentioned it last episode. I've been working on this a bit. And so I wanted to pop down here and show you this. This little section here isn't really done. I'm actually focusing on the back side, and then I'm going to come back this way once I figure out what all blocks I'm going to use and finish out this side. So, yeah, it's a lot of work. But over here, I have been busy. This is still, the stone's still here. I have to put the blocks up here, and then this stone will be pulled out once I finish the ceiling. But down here, I have set up some fun things. Walls and bridges. You can actually see the bridge there and the supports that run down. And then over here, I've built this out. This is actually where our tree farm's going to be. So I've placed this stuff out. It's not the most efficient because these walls are going to block a little bit of spawning. I'm hoping that leaves don't become an issue, like poking through. I know it's sometimes an issue, but I think, because this is actually going to be too thick, I think it's going to be okay, but we'll see. If I need to change things up, I can. Down here, I have done a bit of work with the bridges, and I've started putting in, right now this is basalt. There's going to be more to this than just a black wall, but hopefully that'll be done by the next... Well, actually, I know it'll be done by the next time I show you guys, because the next few episodes are going to be servitor episodes, for probably 2 or 3 episodes. So, this whole section should be done. But, anyways, I've worked on this bridge here that comes across, and the bridge on the opposite side. This right here, I've actually got an idea, because this is going to go down pretty far, and I've got an idea. I'm going to have, from somewhere, I'm going to have, like, a beam set up that looks like sunlight coming in, and then sunlight traveling down, and then it activates a big light down at the bottom. Is kind of what I'm thinking. These are the new laser cells from Cyclic. These are one of the 2 new added items from Cyclic. The other being the water candle, which if you've ever played Terraria, it works the same way. Increases nearby spawns when it's lit. That's what the water candle does. But the laser cells, these are kind of cool because you can take... I've got a GPS marker right here. And if we take this and we were to shift right click, like right over here, and I've got a laser cell right here, if we were to put this into here, and you can put up to 4 of these into it, you can see it sends a beam over there. And you can change the X offset, the Y offset, and the Z offset, and kind of change where the laser comes out of the laser cell. You can change it from rotating to stationary. Stationary is just going to be a solid beam. Rotating, you get this little like pulsing effect, which is kind of cool. And then you could set it to fixed or extending. Extending will actually shoot a beam across. It's not very fast, and there's not really a way to increase the speed on it, but you can make it extend if you so desire. And like I said, you can put up to 4 of them in here. This is your alpha transparency, so you can make it more or less transparent. I'm actually thinking about changing this to maybe like a 16. I actually like that beam. Whereas that, I think it's just a little bit too bright, but I'm still playing around with it. And then you can do your colors, your blue, green, and red, and then you can set it to always on or require redstone. And that's basically how these work. So, they're kind of cool. They're like, they're not as good as the, like, you know, the 1.7 Draconic Evolution lasers. I loved those things, and honestly, the day they were removed from Draconic Evolution was the day that I like Draconic Evolution a whole lot less, because, I don't know, Draconic Evolution is just a little bit OP. You know, there's a running joke with it where Draconic Evolution is balanced because it takes effort. And I think That's kind of I'm on that side of the debate on that. I don't know. Draconic Evolution a bit OP, and it kind of makes things a little bit unfun in a lot of packs. It's not so bad whenever it's like super late game, but when it's like really kitchen sinky type packs, it's no fun. But anyways, it's kind of like a more simplified version of that, but still pretty cool. I do quite like them. I'm glad they added them in there. Cyclic's just an all-around fun mod. So every time it gets updated, it's like, it's cool things. And you know, like, if you compare Cyclic now to like Cyclic on our Farming Valley series, there's so much more stuff. They're always adding new stuff to Cyclic. It's just it's an all-around good mod. So anyways, in here I have prepped up a bunch of things. Now this is actually, in some cases, this is a little bit overkill. This is actually, I think, one advanced circuit more than what I need. And then I've got like some extras up here. I've got extra glass fiber. That's okay, because we're going to start getting into scanning and replicating this episode. So we'll be able to scan and replicate, you know, some of these things in here. But if we take a look, let's go ahead and pull up the quest book for starters, because we are going to finish out these 4 quests. And we're going to start off by just making some machines, and then we'll actually start using all the stuff to get into scanning and replication, and we will set it up so that our fuel rods are handled automatically coming from and into the reactor chambers. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to take our clay dust right here, and I want to dump this. This is just macerate clay. Macerate clay or clay blocks. You're going to get clay dust. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and just toss this into, let's see, if I run it through the thermal centrifuge, it's not going to go, okay, it's not going to go anywhere else. So let's go ahead, we'll just dump that into there, and it's going to start heating up. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to process that clay dust, and it's going to turn it into silicon dioxide. We are going to need that. Actually, I'm probably going to need, no, I think that'll be enough for my needs right now. If I need to make more, I can. I did throw some overclockers into, like the macerator's got 5, the compressor has 6, solid canning machine has 4. I'm going to throw in more upgrades, but that's a start. So these are actually going to get a lot of upgrades by the time we're totally done with IC2, as far as expanding on it and everything. Okay, so while that stuff is running, let's go ahead and craft up a couple things. The first thing that I'm going to want is, if we take, I'll tell you what, let's take the energy crystals, that, advanced circuits. I want to make mining lasers. We're going to go ahead and make 3 mining lasers, because we're going to need these for some of our crafts. And then I want to make one machine that we've already made, and that is a thermal centrifuge, because we're going to be using this here shortly for automating our fuel rods. And I'm missing an advanced machine casing. Oh yeah, I need to make these. Let's go ahead and grab this stuff out of there. And we're going to need to get, I believe my count was 9 advanced machine casings. I'm going to go ahead and get 10 for now. And then let's go ahead and get our thermal centrifuge. So there's that. And then I am going to need a couple transformer upgrades, which I don't have. I'm going to have to craft those. That's not a problem. I'll craft them in just a minute. And then we are going to want to make pattern storage. This right here, this is actually the first quest that's in our quest book. We're going to need some reinforced stone, a couple of these crystal memories, which are, that's what the silicon dioxide's for, as well as this pulverized obsidian right here. We're going to need, let's see. Oh, wow, that's taking a while. Can I throw an overclocker? Since the ore processing system isn't working, can I throw like an overclocker in there? Maybe. Okay, I'll tell you what, while this silicon dioxide is processing, I'm going to go ahead and craft up like 2 transformer upgrades. And I think that's the only ones that we're going to need, is just 2 of them this episode. So give me just a second while I get this crafted up. Okay, I got the 2 transformer upgrades made. And then we've got 12 silicon dioxide. We're going to need a little bit more than that, but that'll get us started. And let's take a look again at the pattern storage. We're only going to need 1 of these. We're going to need to make 2 of these crystal memories. So we'll go ahead and get those. And then we're going to need to smelt these up. So, of course, induction furnace. Toss those in, and there we go. And these don't stack, so just a heads up. And then we need this, let's see, reinforced stone, I think is all that we need for that. There we go. There's our pattern storage. And we should get a quest complete. There we go. And we'll go ahead and snag a loot chest. And claim. And then next up, we need to make a scanner. That'll be the next quest. So, the scanner... Let's take a look here. We'll open up the loot chest here in just a second. I've got all this stuff prepped. Advanced circuit, advanced machine casing, and then just a bunch of... I had illuminators and reinforced glass left over from a previous craft. So let's go ahead and get the scanner. Once again, we only really need one of these. We could do with more of them. It doesn't really hurt to have more of them because you can scan more things at once. But you really only need like one of them. It's not the fastest process in the world, but one does work out. And we'll complete that quest and we'll get a loot chest. Okay, I had the wrong quest open. And you can see it's in red. It says this will destroy the item. That's fine. Whenever you scan it, it will destroy it. And then lastly, we need to make ourselves a replicator. And we're actually going to make 2 replicators. And they're a little bit expensive because they require this stuff pretty easy. HV transformers, MFE, pretty easy. But then you need 3 teleporters for each one. And these, they're not terrible, but it's a lot of advanced circuits. They'll be a little bit easier to craft before too long, but right now, you know, it is what it is. But anyways, we are going to get into teleportation, by the way, in a very soon upcoming episode. But let's go ahead and get ourselves our teleporters. These aren't going to stack. And I want 6 of these altogether, because we're going to make 2 replicators. These 2 replicators were actually about the most costly part of all of this, in truth. And then, there we go. There's 2 replicators. Great. Okay, so now, there we go. Quest complete. Replicator. And we'll go ahead and grab our loot chest. And then there's also a quest here for Iridium, which we've already gotten before. There we go. Quest complete. And another loot chest. Alright, so let's go ahead and open these things. First up, we got a heavy plated shield from Immersive Engineering. Okay. That is going into there. Next up, we got 4 Eyes of Ender. Okay. That's going into there. So much junk. Then we got a Horn of the Wild. That's actually not too bad. I'll take that. Because I can break grass with it. Which I don't really have a lot of grass to break since I live underground, but, you know, whatever. And then lastly, we got Dragon's Breath. 16 of them. That's actually a really awesome loot chest. I will take that. 16 Dragon's Breath. That's actually useful. Because technically we could make Ender Stars a bit sooner. Though, really, I could go fight the Ender Dragon, so I guess... But I will have a use for that. Okay, these other things, not as much. That I will have a use for. So, I consider it a good reward if I can actually use it for something. Okay, so now that we've got that stuff, let's see, how's this doing on our silicon dioxide? There we go, there's 6 pieces. That should be enough. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and set some of this stuff up. First up, I want to put down our... Let me actually... see what? Let me turn off this power. And let me break off... Let me break off this glass fiber cable for just a minute. And we're going to put down our thermal centrifuge setting right here. The one that we just made. And then let's go ahead and throw in our 2 transformer upgrades. And I could put overclockers into this. I'm not going to worry about it because it's just going to run. And honestly, I only needed to be able to complete 14 quad fuel rods. Probably if I had 2 more reactors, it'll be 28 quad fuel rods. But even still, I only need to have that, be able to complete it, like, I don't know, 3 times a day or something. You know, basically once every reactor cycle. It needs to be able to run that stuff down. And, okay, those are already in there. Great. Let's go ahead and plug the power cable back up. And then I want to, let me throw on our hazmat suit. And let's go ahead and grab these quad fuel rods. And we're going to go ahead and toss these guys into there. And then let's go ahead and flip the power on this. And this is going to start running. It's going to start building up on power. You know, it's actually doing so. It's such a slow rate. I tell you what, I'm going to pull those out of there. Instead of having it over here, what we'll do instead, let's grab this. And I might set up the thermal centrifuge out here. I'm trying to figure out where I want to put this thermal centrifuge. I tell you what, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the thermal centrifuge. I'm actually going to pump the rods out of there, and we'll bring them back along through here, is what we'll do. And then we'll set the thermal centrifuge up, like right... maybe right back here, in fact. And then I'll have to run power up. Well, I'll run the power from behind. I'll run the items. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do, and we'll just run this power up like that. Let me actually clip that off for just a moment. We'll set the thermal centrifuge down. We'll throw the transformer upgrades in there. And this way it actually gets full power. We'll attach some power into it. And there we go. It's going to get a little bit of power built up. And now if we throw in the quad fuel rods, it should start charging up. It's not the fastest thing in the world. Okay, so we'll have that setting there. And here in a second, it's actually going to start processing the quad fuel rods. And what I want to do is... let's see. Do we want to... well, actually, before we plug this up, I want to go ahead and set up the scanner and replicator and all that stuff. So what we're going to do is let's get our scanner. And I guess we're going to put this in... this won't be the only one that we have. This will be like our manual one. We're going to have some ones that are automatic as well. But let's go ahead and put in... the only thing is I've got all that back there. Okay, so what we'll do... I don't think... let's see. The scanner and replicator both... let's go ahead and set up a replicator. I don't think they actually take that much power. I want to say it's like 200. But this thing can output 2048, so this should be alright. It just means that it may stop, it may slow down the mass fab whenever this stuff's running. But for right now, this will be okay. And then, honestly, we probably will end up changing this over to, maybe to RTGs here shortly. But for right now, we'll plug it into our reactor setup. So, replicator setting there. And, let's see, we're going to have to run some power over to this. And I guess... the pattern storage doesn't need any power. But I'm going to run that behind it. And we'll just run this over like this. Oh, this thing stores up to 2 million EU. So initially these things aren't getting along right now. Because this is actually pulling a lot of power in. But it won't be so bad once it gets... no, I'll have to see. I was thinking this thing only used like... I don't know. We'll have to see. Like I said, we're going to change it to RTG. Because it's acting up with the recyclers at the moment. But this thing is sitting at 64 scrap boxes. So, mainly because the matter fab isn't getting... yeah, I guess it's not so bad. Because it basically cuts down power on the matter fab. It's still running, but just really slow. And these are slowing down. But I mean, this thing's about filled up with power. So we'll see. It'll be alright. It'll be alright. I actually debated about plugging all this into here or not, but I think I want it here for right now. And then we'll change it up once we get replication really up and going. Okay, so we're going to put our pattern storage down right there. And then we're going to place down our scanner right here. And that's going to build up on power too, 512,000 EU. And then let's go ahead and we're going to scan our very first thing. And I think the first thing that I want to scan, actually, is let me get 4 iron plates. Let me set this metal former to extruding, and we're going to dump these into there. And what I want to make is I want to make a quad fuel rod. And we're going to automate the fuel rods coming out of here. By the way, if we take a look right now, thermal centrifuge, it's running these quad fuel rods, and for each one that it runs, we get 4 tiny piles of plutonium. We get 16 uranium-238, and we get 7 pulverized iron. So it's actually going to be quite a bit per cycle, like on plutonium and stuff. Okay, there's our 4 fuel rods, and let's go ahead and craft up a quad rod. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that quad rod, and we're going to put it into our scanner, and we're going to start scanning this. And it does take a bit of power. and a bit of time to scan this. I mean, you could say that every time it goes through this little cycle, it's 1%. Okay? So it is going to take it a minute, and right now it's running off the MFSU. It's pulling 256 EU per tick, which isn't too bad. These are now powered off. Like, they've depleted these the uranium cells. We're going to get them back up and running here in just a moment. Our thermal centrifuge is, I mean, it's ran through all of this stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so I can finish processing these. Or actually, let me stop that for just a second. We're going to go ahead and do the output for this while we're waiting for that to scan. Because that's why I want to go ahead and get this set up, is because it does take a while. Let's grab some item conduits. And we're going to have to pump out. Okay, I'm going to want to pump out on blue and on black. And let me take our tiny piles of plutonium as well as these tiny piles that we've gotten from exploring. And let's go ahead and lock these in. Let's see. Right there's uranium. We'll go ahead and lock them in right there. So the tiny piles of plutonium and the uranium-238 can both just be pulled out on the black line, and they'll go into the drawers. And then we need the pulverized iron to get pulled out on blue. And so what we're going to do is, I guess we're just going to use like a buffer chest. Yeah, actually I could do a conduit line right there. Conduit line. Yeah, we'll do that instead of having the buffer chest. We're going to say that this one pulls out on the black channel. Always active. And so it's going to pump anything. It's going to pump out the plutonium and the... Well, actually, yeah. Yeah, that'll be good. It's going to pump out the plutonium and the uranium. And what I need to do is I just need to find our conduit line over here. Ooh, this is kind of eerie, right? And we just need to plug it into this conduit line here. Is what we need to do. And that conduit line there, I'm going to double check, but I think that should connect up to everything. So then if we just plug that up, that's set to always active. Okay, that's great. And then we're going to plug up a line here, and we're going to say this is going to extract on the blue line, always active. And that should pull out the pulverized iron. And we plugged in like right there. The blue line should come around. Like it comes back in behind here. Connects to all of that. And then this comes down. Yeah. So it should pump the pulverized iron into one of these electric furnaces, smelt it, and then of course it gets pulled out and sent to the storage system. And let me go ahead and take this pulverized iron, just dump it into one of these. Okay, so that's smelting up, and then the iron will get pulled out and sent to the storage system. Great. Great stuff. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to pull in the depleted uranium from over there into our thermal centrifuge. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say that you can insert, and it's going to be on the lime channel, or the pink channel. We'll say you can insert on the pink channel as well. And we're just going to bring this conduit line back. And I'm going to have to make a filter just really, really quick. Let me pop upstairs. Let me go get a filter. And we're just going to put our basic item filter in there. And we're going to say that you pull in quad fuel rods. Now, it's possible we actually may not even need a filter here, because I don't think that that any of this other stuff could go into the thermal centrifuge, in truth, since we're pumping straight into the thermal centrifuge. But we're going to go ahead and put a filter in there just to be on the safe side. Because now that I think about it, we may not actually even need that. But. And then we're going to set a conduit line here that's set to extract, and we need to set this to the pink channel. And then we'll bring this back. We're going to add another one here, set to the pink channel. And then we'll go ahead and just run this over. And right here, we're going to say that you don't connect. Go ahead and connect that. Connect that. And now if we give it just a second, we should see the depleted uranium fuel rods get pulled out. Okay, yeah, I didn't set this one to extract. Whoops. There we go. It is emptying out. Awesome. Okay, so those are automatically getting pulled out. And it's only going to pull out the quad fuel rods, and it's going to dump them straight into the thermal centrifuge, process them, and then we'll get the plutonium and stuff from it. Great. Okay, now if we take a look here at the scanner, it's done. You can see that to make a quad fuel rod, it takes 140 millibuckets. And I did some math earlier. For every cycle of quad fuel rods, before they get depleted, it produces about 6,000 millibuckets of UU matter. And to craft quad fuel rods, it takes 140 millibuckets. It ends up being about 1,900 millibuckets of UU matter to make our 14 quad fuel rods. So it's actually only going to take about a third of the produced UU matter to replenish the reactors. And that way we don't ever have to craft the quad fuel rods. We can just make them with UU matter and keep these reactors running 24/7, no matter if we mine uranium or not. It's not going to matter a bit. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take our silicon dioxide and our obsidian. We're going to make a crystal memory. And actually, before I forget, let's go ahead right here, the scanner scan, let's go ahead and hit save. And since it's right next to the pattern storage, you can see we have quad fuel rods saved into the pattern storage. And then if you take a look in the replicator, we can click right here, and there's quad fuel rods. So putting this in the middle is ideal because it connects up everything that way. And then what we're going to do, let's see, this crystal memory, we're going to use this here in just a minute, I think. So let's go ahead and drop this into the induction furnace. This is basically a portable pattern storage, and it only stores like one thing. But one thing that we can do is we can take this crystal memory, and we're going to put it into there, and we're going to say export to crystal. And you can see the crystal memory says item quad fuel rod uranium. And it tells you the cost, 140 millibuckets. I'm going to eventually move the fluid over there, but I don't want to do that just yet, actually. I don't want to do that just yet. Now that I think about it. I'm just going to take and bucket a few buckets of this UU matter. Let's see, let's go with like 6 buckets. So about half of our total UU matter so far. That way we have a little bit to play with. And what we're going to do is we're going to say the quad fuel rod uranium, we're going to set it to repeat run for right now. And you can see that it's going to take the UU and it has to, basically it has to drain it. And it drains like 1 millibucket at a time. Pretty dreadful. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it can accept overclockers. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to check the EU cost. See, it's 512 at the moment that it has to consume to make this. And let me see how our MFSU is doing. It's doing all right. Okay. This first changeover is going to be the worst. Once it's all automated, it's going to be a whole lot easier. Okay, and I had this running for a second. You can see that we're about to get our third one. So hits 100% and pow. There we go. So you can see that the EU, I don't really know why that showed there because it just stays at 0%. And it doesn't really matter, I don't guess. But anyways, what we're going to do is, see, I'm actually thinking what we're going to do is, since we've already got this pattern storage here, yeah, let's do this. Let's put another replicator setting right here. And this one's going to have to build up on power and all that good stuff. And it's going to drain a little bit of power. That's fine. And what we'll do is we'll set this one to quad fuel rods. We're going to set it to repeat run. And we are going to... This one's going to run quad fuel rods all the time. This one's going to be our actual personal use replicator. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run a conduit line behind this. And we're going to put an item conduit right here that's going to extract. And we'll say that you can extract always active. And I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and bucket up some UU matter. Dump it into here. And I'm going to set this to single run. So that it doesn't make any more quad fuel rods after that point. In fact. And this one's going to just keep producing. Okay. And we're actually going to go ahead and just dump all the rest of our UU matter into this one. This is the only one I'm going to plug up for right now until it backs up on UU matter. And then I will plug up, this one so it automatically gets UU matter. But for right now, I don't want it to. I want this one to be the priority. This one is, we'll just have this UU matter. And it should be backed up by the time I actually need it. By like tomorrow, this will probably be backed up. And what we're going to do, we're extracting on light blue. And let's go ahead and we're just going to run our conduit line out And I don't know if I just want to plug it into this or actually, I tell you what. I'm going to do a separate conduit line. And it's going to plug into the back top of these. I wish I could get back there. Okay, there we go. It's going to insert on the green channel. That's fine. And then we'll just run it over. And right back here, we're going to say that you can also insert on the green line. You could connect it into this line. But since this is like a general line for like the whole IC2 area, I'd rather plug up as little stuff as I can into it, I think. And let's go ahead and just bring this, let's dig behind the reinforced stone here. There is the line. Let me change this to, say this is the green line. Okay, and it's making quad fuel rods. It doesn't have enough at the moment to actually put... Eventually it's going to be backed up, is the plan. It's going to be backed up on fuel rods, but right now it actually doesn't have enough fuel rods for this to work out too well. And right now this might... If I'm replicating and scanning, and this is auto-replicating, and all these are trying to run, and the thermal centrifuge is trying to run, it may actually suffer some power issues at the moment, because I'm limited by my MFSU to 2048 that I can pull out. And I know these are each going to consume 170. Okay, actually, just a really quick little math. This actually should be alright. Unless I am... It might actually struggle if I am recycling, using the thermal centrifuge, replicating here, and scanning. It might have some issues. But, unless I'm just doing all those things at once, I think it'll be okay. So I just need to make sure I'm not be scanning and replicating over here at the same time, and the thermal centrifuge running and all of that. Which this is working perfect. But I think we should be okay. And so I actually don't need this crystal memory. I was going to actually set up another pattern storage, I thought, back in here, and set it up back here like the replicator. But no, I think right there is good. And so I can just feed off of this pattern storage. So, okay. What we're going to do, I've powered this off for right now. Let's go ahead and take these 5 quad fuel rods for just a second. And we're just going to shift click them into there. I've got this turned off, so it's not going to run until it's filled up. But by the time these deplete, this should have enough UU matter or enough quad rods made that it'll be backed up and it can feed just 14 into the reactor. So after this initial setup point, it's not going to be an issue. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to take and just plug up our item conduit. And if we take a look here, see we're missing 2 right there, and we don't have any inside of this reactor. We plug this up, and if we take a look, this reactor is now filled. This reactor has 1. So we're waiting for 6 more quad fuel rods at the moment. We'll get this back up and going here in a second. And the nice thing is, once the replicator backs up, you know, it's got 64 quad fuel rods in here, which is a lot, but once it backs up, it's only going to run periodically after each cycle. It's going to run for a minute. It's going to produce some more quad fuel rods, and then it'll be done for that cycle. It is going to produce a little bit less UU matter because there's a little bit less power going around at the moment. But after this runs for a few cycles, it should be fine. And then, like I said, we're going to boost the power generation on this here fairly soon as well. Now, one thing I would like to do while I've got my hazmat suit on, let's pop upstairs. And there's another thing that I would like to scan just really, really quick. That is RTG fuel. I want to scan this. There's actually quite a few things that I want to scan. Okay, we're up to 2 quad fuel rods. Just need 5 more and then we can start the reactors up. But once this is all done, this should be a completely self-sufficient system. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost the power back here. I'm going to throw down some RTGs and some different things. Boost the power back here. And then this thing's going to be running beautiful. Because the more power sources that we can feed into this, the better. Okay, our reactor's filled up again. We have all of our quad fuel rods in all of this. And the replicator is currently running, producing more of them. It's just going to keep producing. I did run some fluid conduits up and over that pull the... We may end up changing this with like phantom liquid faces or something later on, but for right now this will be alright. I don't mind cables. I mean, it's a reactor, right? So there should be cables. I don't mind cables running up and around like that. Over here, it's just about to finish scanning advanced machine casings. You remember these things that take a bit to craft. There we go. You can see they only cost 16 millibuckets of UU matter. And so if I was to, like over here, I did scan the RTG. They almost cost a full bucket. But we can also craft them pretty easily with the plutonium coming from this reactor. We'll actually be able to craft, like if you take a look at RTG fuel, it takes dense iron plates and plutonium. You can also do it with plutonium like we did before, but it takes plutonium. Plutonium is 9 tiny piles of plutonium. So technically we can craft, almost 2 of these per cycle. And that 2 of them it's either 16 or 32 EU per tick. I have to look. But I mean, that's free power every cycle. So really, we probably won't be duplicating or replicating these because they cost a bucket. But at least we have the recipe in there if we need it. And then if we pop over here to the advanced machine casing, let's say single run. Look at that. It pulls in the UU matter that it needs. This really doesn't take very long to craft, as you can tell. And as soon as it gets done, pow, advanced machine casing. That easy. And we can put overclockers in this. We will eventually overclock this replicator, like the manual one. But eventually we'll probably have this set up so it keeps 64 advanced machine casings on hand at all times. You want to see something else that we can scan? If we take a fire dragon heart, turn it into the draconic evolution dragon heart, drop that in there, we can scan that. And you can make dragon hearts. You can also make chaos shards. Basically, anything that comes from like IC2, take a look at it. If it'll go into the scanner, it can be replicated. Okay? If something cannot be replicated, it will not go into the scanner. But most of your IC2 and most of your like vanilla items can be scanned. Also, if you take a look at the replicator, this is an extended list of other things that can be scanned. So you can see you've got like the advanced machine casings, thermal expansion machine frames, RF tools machine frames, all these litherite crystals, machine blocks, ultimate control circuits, hardened casings, fusion crafting cores. And the nice thing is most things are not terribly expensive to replicate. Like the advanced machine casing, that's crazy, right? 16 millibuckets is like, I don't know, like maybe a minute and a half of this running in the background, running 24/7 on a server. 16 millibuckets is nothing. And I mean, it crafts decently fast. Now, the speed that it crafts is dependent on how much UU matter it takes. So something that takes a bucket is going to take a whole lot longer than something that takes 16 millibuckets. As you can see, I mean, these things aren't even super fast, and they only require 140 millibuckets. But let's go ahead and hit this. Let's start running this again. And so it's going to start kicking through our fuel rods. If we take a look at the mass fab, it is running. And actually, one thing I want to mention, because I know I was brought up on the Discord and on the comments on the last video about putting the energy storage upgrade. Because there is, with IC2, I just want to address this because I had quite a few comments about it. This right here, the energy storage upgrade, increases energy storage by 10,000 EU. It is a very useful upgrade if you want a lot of EU storage inside of something. And it actually, if you put enough of them in there, it basically turns your machines into MFEs or MFSUs or, whatever. But I had some comments about putting them in the recycler and that it would make it faster. That's not actually the case. These aren't bottoming out. If they were bottoming out, that would be an issue. But these actually have 397 EU storage, and they only consume about 170. And so they're staying filled on power. I mean, power's not an issue. I don't need energy storage in these. I mean, I could craft them, but it's basically just if I want to store more power, and there's not really any point for the setup. These are kicking on and off right now, but that's simply because they're backed up on scrap. But whenever they're not backed up on scrap, they just stay running constant. So I just wanted to address that just really, really quick. But if we take a look over here, we should see the UU matter. Well, the UU matter's dropping right now. That's because this thing is consuming faster than this is creating UU matter. But as this backs up, then this will back up with UU matter. Then this will back up with UU matter. And once this starts backing up with UU matter, I'm going to send UU matter to this replicator. But until then, I'm just going to have this be bucketed UU matter. Because it's going to take me a little bit to use through 5,268 UU matter. And there we go. Our Dragon Heart is done. You can see Dragon Hearts cost 2 buckets of UU matter. We'll go ahead and save. It goes in the pattern storage. And there we go. We now have 4 recipes within the pattern storage. So let's grab some other stuff. Let's keep the scanner going. I love it. Advanced alloy. You know, this stuff, it's a little bit of a process to make because you got to make iron plates, bronze plates, tin plates, and it only makes 2, and then you have to run it through the compressor. We don't want to do that anymore. Let's scan it. So that way we can replicate it. If I recall correctly, this thing is super cheap to replicate as well, like the advanced machine casing. But let's take a look here. How much power? See, it's not really getting a whole lot of power, but that's because this thing is running 24/7. I'm also scanning and doing all these other things. Thermal centrifuge is done now. But one thing that I can do, if we pop upstairs here, I could make some RTGs. And so I could add like some extra power there. Yeah, we've almost got 2 stacks of plutonium right now. Now there are other uses for plutonium because you can make plutonium blocks, which is kind of useful. We'll do that later. We don't need that right this second. And then plutonium, you can also make MOX fuel with it, which will be useful, but not right this second. I want to go ahead and make some RTG pellets. Okay, this has all been running for a bit. Thermal centrifuge, I did facade everything. So that's all facaded. Over here, replicator is sitting at, it's either 27 or 37 quad fuel rods. There's a bit of UU matter backed up in here. That is because I changed over to pressurized fluid conduits instead of just the standard fluid conduits. At first I thought, well, I think the purple going up through the conduit would look good. But then it was like, well, it takes so much of a buffer to like, because it needs to go up and fight gravity, so it actually has to fill up. And it was just so much UU matter, I was like, I'm just going to basically insert it into the portable tank and then change over pressurized fluid conduits, which you can make the diffused quartz in that alloy maker that we've been using. From Nuclear Craft. And then back in here, I have facaded there, I facaded there. Also, right here, you'll notice there's a couple other things here. I crafted up a couple radioisotope thermoelectric generators, and I made our pellets of RTG fuel. So 3 is the maximum that you need. Normally, of course, it takes all 6 to get 32 EU per tick. In this pack, with the buffed up power, it's 8, and then 2 makes 16, and then 3 makes 32. So, you can add more, and you would make like 64, and then 128, and then 256. But you can't pull that power out. It can only output 32 EU per tick. So even plugging up, you know, glass fiber on another side, it doesn't change anything. It can't output that power. So, I've just got 3 in this one. I've got 1 in this one. I'll make some more pellets as soon as the next cycle finishes. And I've got dense iron plates. I got another reactor chamber. Got a generator made. I did try scanning the thermoelectric, radioisotope, yeah, all that stuff, but it doesn't scan. So then if we take a look inside the pattern storage, I have scanned lots of things. Okay, we got our quad fuel rods. We've got the RTG fuel, the advanced machine casing, Dragonheart. Then we've got advanced alloy. That's 1.8 millibuckets per advanced alloy. Super cheap. The electronic circuit is 0.8 millibuckets. Like, it's super low. It's super low. We're going to craft some here in just a second. Advanced circuit. This one is actually super expensive. 213 millibuckets. So honestly, I think you're better off just replicating the electronic circuit and then just crafting this, because all it is 4 redstone, 2 lapis, 2 glowstone. Super cheap. That's a little bit expensive. Glass fiber cable is 11.96 millibuckets. Pretty decently cheap, I'd say. Lead ingot is 4.8 millibuckets. Dense lead plates, 43 millibuckets. I've got lead plates, 4.8 millibuckets. Litherite crystals for kind of jump-starting environmental tech, because we found some as loot, but they're only 60 millibuckets apiece. And they're decently involved to craft. Like, if you take a look at litherite, you're supposed to make it with fluid transposer, I guess, initially. I'm assuming that it takes some litherite to, let me see. But it takes the terrestrial artifact, which is all this stuff, and molten enderium to make litherite. But we can make it, we don't have to do all that empowered stuff. We can just replicate it pretty easily, which is going to help us out in the long run. Iridium ore is super cheap in this pack. I seem to recall it being more expensive, but maybe not. It's only 100 millibuckets per iridium ore, which is rather cheap. Iridium shards is 11.13 millibuckets. Pistons, 14.94 millibuckets. They're not terrible to craft, but this is actually pretty cheap. Insulated copper cable, okay, it's 101 millibuckets for insulated copper cable. It's 11 millibuckets for glass fiber cable. And then dense iron plates, 7.007 millibuckets. So super cheap on those as well. I haven't actually replicated. The ones I have over there I actually crafted with iron, but I'll probably just replicate from here on out because that's rather cheap. And let's for example, let's make an advanced alloy. Watch this. Pow. Way cheap, way faster than doing all the rest of the stuff involved with, with making those. Electronic circuits. Let's say repeat run. Look at this. Just kicking out electronic circuits. And you can see if you watch our UU matter, like, look at that. It's using about 1 millibucket per electronic circuit, and then every 5 it gets a free one, basically, because it's only using about 0.8 millibuckets to make these. It's insanely cheap, so much better than having to craft those ourselves. And I'll set that to single run. Okay, so there's 45 of those. But yeah, I mean, it makes life so much easier, right? Okay, yeah, we're at 42 quad fuel rods. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. No, I did not mean to do that. That's fine. We're going to need them eventually anyways. But I'm going to put a chest right here set to always extract. And we'll just put the quad fuel rods in there. And they should get moved out into the reactors faster than the ones from this will get pulled out. I'll keep an eye on it. And I mean, if it does try to pull these out, I'll deal with it. It just means it's going to take a little bit longer before it backs up. Well, probably not even longer, because it's going to be able to put all of the quad fuel rods into here and build them up. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Anyways, I know it's wrapping up point. I know it's past wrapping up point. I know it's a longer episode, but I mean, we had a lot to cover. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out. Next episode, of course, will be server tours. We're going to start server tours. And then whenever we get done with the server tours, we're going to come back. We're going to finish up kind of our tier 1 mods, IC2, basically IC2 and a little bit of gathering stuff. We're going to set up a wood farm. We're going to get our quantum chest piece. We're going to get some teleporters up and going. Then we're going to start moving into our next batch of mods. So we will start with some new mods soon. We've kind of I mean, we're not done with IC2, but we've kind of gotten to the point where IC2 is very, very comfortable at the moment. I can make lots of things very easily. And I'm going to continue scanning stuff, as we go through. But that's the current outlook at the moment. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope to see you guys next time. We have a few server tour episodes coming up. I hope you guys are excited about that. There's some really awesome builds on the server. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. So anyways, I hope you guys join me for that. Until next time, as always, do take care. Stay safe. I'll see you guys then.